Good afternoon. It's Wednesday afternoon, and this is the Rocky Mountain Raptor Program's virtual program. And I welcome you. Thank you for joining us. And today we're going to talk about a red-tailed hawk. And it's our most common hawk in Colorado, so we see it all the time. In fact, I drove here today on Taft Hill Road, and I bet you I saw 15 of them. And it could be because there's so much snow on the ground that they don't see their prey. Or it could be that there's no thermals rising and they're not soaring, so they're just hanging around on top of the telephone poles. I don't know which one of those are it, but I'm going to look into it and see if I can figure it out. I would like to welcome our guest bird today, which is a red-tailed hawk. And if we can switch over to the red-tailed hawk. This is a red-tailed hawk that's about 20 years old. He came to us 18 years ago. And he came to us with West Nile virus. That's an infection that's carried by mosquitoes, and it's a dreadful disease that affects both humans and birds. So it's very fortunate that he survived. Birds, particularly the crow family, suffer from this, but also raptors are very susceptible to it, and they suffer from. And this young lady here, our 20-year-old bird, suffered from brain damage, and she has no fear of humans. She doesn't recognize food as prey, and she has vision loss. So when she came in, we rehabilitated her, but she was not able to be released because of her problems resulting from the West Nile infection. So she's been with us as an educational ambassador since then. I would also like to acknowledge Hildy Reiser, who is our bird handler today. Thank you for coming in on the snowy roads today, and thank you very much. So the West Nile came to the United States in 1999. It was first observed in New York City, and within a year or two, it had crossed the nation. And as you know, because you probably worry about it every summer, there's certain mosquitoes at dawn and dusk that are prominent in carrying that virus, and we humans have to be careful, and also the birds have to be careful. It's spread by mosquitoes. So this is our most common hawk, and the reason it's probably our most common hawk, it's an American hawk. It's only in North America, the red-tailed hawk. It's the reason it's so successful is it's such an opportunistic hunter. It will prey on anything that it can catch less than 5 pounds. So that's small mammals, that's amphibians, that's birds, that's snakes. It will eat anything it can capture, and it's incredibly powerful. This bird is about 3 pounds that you're looking at. So it's a large bird and extremely powerful. It varies in its range. It's probably got 16 subspecies, and they're mostly varied by color. So they're extremely varied. When red-tailed hawks were first observed, they thought there were 2 different species, and the adolescents look very different than adults. Adolescents don't get the trademark red tail until they're 2 years old and sexually mature. The immatures have a different coloration. Their wings are longer and narrower, so they look very different. They thought they were a different kind of bird, but it turned out they were just adolescents. As they grew up, they were the same. So this bird is successful in every habitat, nearly every habitat in North America, not counting the Arctic. But it's great in deserts, in prairies, in plains, along the coast, here in Colorado. So it's a very successful bird. And right now is starting to be nesting season. So these birds are monogamous, and the pairs stay together. So they establish that bond and reassert that bond through flying maneuvers that the male and the female do to reset their bond with each other. And they also defend their territories when it's breeding season. So one of the things we wanted to talk about today was these birds have beaks, but they have no teeth. So how does that work? How do you survive? How do you chew food with no beaks? Now, when I eat, I eat, and if I'm eating a spare rib, I will eat that. I will be very picky about what I eat, and I'll eat that spare rib. And if I hit a piece of gristle, I won't eat that. Of course, I don't eat the bone because I can't digest bone, so I'm very picky. And then I chew it with these big teeth of mine, and everything that goes down my throat, I digest. So it's very. I do all the sorting with my mouth. Birds don't do that. Birds have a beak. They tear to swallow. They have no teeth. And I bet we could probably see some tearing right now if she is in the mood. So the beak is bone. It's got bone on the top and bone on the bottom, and it's covered with a tough coating of keratin. And keratin is the same material that her talons are made of, and our fingernails are made of, and it's also what the feathers are made of. So, and our hair. So keratin is a very sturdy material that covers her beak, and she's very good at tearing that food. But as you can see, she can't separate the edible from the non-edible. So losing the teeth was an evolutionary action that enabled her to become a light flight capable body. So if she had teeth, they'd be very heavy, and she wouldn't fly as well. So it was very good from an evolutionary point of view for her to lose the teeth and become more streamlined and a lightweight body. So, but how does she then do this? She has a thin walled pouch in her esophagus called a crop, and that's where she's storing the food right now. And if she eats enough of it, she will get like a big Adam's apple in her throat, and you'll see it grow. If you see a picture of a bird and they're flying away from a feeding, you'll see that looks like they swallowed a golf ball, and that's the crop. And the crop, many birds have crops. Not all birds have crops, and crops they perform several different functions. Pigeons and doves, believe it or not, they make crop milk in their crop. It's secreted from the linings, and it's similar to mammals' milk that they feed their young. And that's pigeons and doves. I thought that was pretty amazing. Now she is going to store that food in her crop, and her crop is larger, has a larger capacity than her stomach. So one of the things she would like to do is when she makes a kill, and supper is there on the ground, she wants to eat as much of that as possible, as quickly as possible, and then she'll get out of there so she can digest it. So when she lands on the ground and she makes her kill, she'll cover that prey with her wings called mantling to cover it from above like camouflage so nobody else can see it. And then she'll quickly as possible tear and eat, tear and swallow, and all that food will go into her crop. And she'll go back and leisurely land somewhere, and she'll digest it a little bit at a time. And the way she sends that food down to her stomach is through wave-like muscle contractions called peristalsis. And that takes the food out of the crop, and it delivers the food down to the stomach. And all birds have two stomachs. The first stomach is a glandular stomach, very similar to ours. It's called the proventriculus, and it has all the digestive fluids, which include very strong acids and digestive juices that will break the food down and allow that digestion to begin. So each one of the birds have different amount of digestive juices and different strengths, so they can digest different amounts of their prey. Some of them can digest bones, some of them can't digest bones. I'll talk about that in a minute. So once her digestion begins and she's digesting the soft materials, the rest of the bird then migrates into her second part of her stomach, which is called the gizzard. It's a muscular stomach, and it is a separate stomach, and it is responsible for managing and essentially chewing the food that we do with our teeth. The gizzard does for the birds. So some birds, like chickens and birds that are related to ground feeding birds, actually eat rocks. And people have asked me if raptors eat rocks. They don't eat rocks. But a chicken or a grouse might eat a rock, and it might pick up something sharp or a seashell and swallow that, get it into its gizzard, and then that gizzard will the gizzard will grind up that food, because if it's a bird that's eating seeds or something or nuts or something like that, it needs to break those up in order to do that. And those rocks over time become rounded and they lose their sharp edges, and the birds will cough them up and eat new rocks and bring them down into their gizzard and pulverize their food. Now raptors don't eat rocks, but they do digest their food into the gizzard, and once it's finished into the gizzard, they will produce a pellet. And all of the things that can't be digested are packed into a pellet, along with some of the enzymes and digestive juices. And if there was fur or feathers, they're packed together and they're coughed up in a pellet. Now the bird of prey that produces the most cool pellet is the great horned owl, or the owl family, because the owls don't have a crop. So they'll tear their food, or the large owls, they eat their small prey whole. So a barn owl that catches a mouse or a vole will eat that vole whole and swallow it, and that vole will go directly to the stomach, and it will dissolve into those digestive juices. And when it's a bit dissolved, it'll move on to the gizzard, where the muscular part manages the chewing essentially, and it digests the soft tissues and all of the part. That's a beautiful picture of her. And all of the parts that are non-digestible are then packed up into this little ball and returned to us as a gift. We gave them a $2 or $3 rat, and they give us back a pellet, and they think we're even. And we say, no, wait, that's not true. So owls are fun to look at the pellets because they're so intact. The owl has a less strong digestive system, so the parts are more intact. All birds have a gizzard. Some birds that eat soft food like berries and things like that will have a small and a thin-walled gizzard, and so it's different for all of them. But they all have two stomachs, and many birds produce pellets. Owls, as I said, are the most fun. Hawks, eagles, and falcons and vultures, they're mostly fur. They digest the bones. Other birds that produce pellets, they include jays and herons and dippers and cormorants, swallows and gulls. So there's a lot of birds that produce pellets. We just don't see very many of them. It's interesting to find the pellets, because if we have great horned owls living in our backyard, and if you find a pellet, one is you can take it apart and see what the bird is eating. That's of course really interesting, but they tend to be in the same place. The owls will congregate on the same branch or in the same neighborhood, and so you can see, if you can find the pellets, you can probably find the owls. But let me caution you, right now the owls are nesting, so please don't go looking for owls. There's two in my backyard, and they were so noisy 2 weeks ago, and now it's just dead quiet out there. And I know that they've got babies. I don't know if they're hatched yet, but I bet you they're very young, and so give them a break. Don't look at them. And right now you can see the red tail of this mature red tail, which she just turned around on us, and those incredibly beautiful talons. She's a lovely bird. So be sure to tune in to us next week. We will be here next Wednesday with for fun information and beautiful birds. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook. You can check our website at rmrp.org. And you can help with us providing a second chance for these marvelous birds. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.